Hi, I'm Craig O'Neill, and if you know anything about me, you know I like to tell stories, to reminisce, and I've always wanted to find a way just to go back in time every now and then and take a look around, to look at the good old days, you know, that brought us to where we are now, that shaped the way that we are today, like 1957, 60 years ago. Where were you? Okay, I know. Some of you weren't born yet, but as for me, I was 7 years old and I was learning how to dance. And like many other Arkansas kids, I was learning my moves by watching one very special program that aired right here on THV11 from this very spot. Well, thanks to the magic of TV, we can, in essence, go back in time and take a look back at one of Little Rock's biggest years with Steve Show.
Do you remember when we fell in love? Once upon a time.
This was my chance.
If you didn't dance, you didn't have any reason to be here.
1, 2.
Little Rock was considered a sort of upper south southern city.
It's unique to Arkansas.
When we were young and down goes my heart.
Historians have sort of addressed those undercurrents of disillusionment in American society in the 1950s. You know, it's the birth of the teenager. It's the idea of, you know, the wild one, the kind of rockers and the kind of disaffected youth.
Back in 1957, teen dance shows were all the rage. 60 years ago, a young man from Newport, Arkansas, got a job right here in the capital city as an announcer. Steve Stevens sat down with me to talk about emceeing the TV show that had every Arkansas teen rushing home from school so they could dance the afternoon away in their living room. It was American Bandstand before there was American Bandstand. How's it feel coming back here?
It feels wonderful.
Do memories flood your consciousness as you walk through those doors?
Always. Yes, always.
As you sit in this studio, what comes back to your
Oh, the myriad of kids who used to come down here and how happy they were and just dancing like crazy. And the studio was filled with kids. You know, busloads from all over the state would pull up out front of Channel 11 and they'd pour in. As a matter of fact, the studio became so full, the fire department came, Marshall came down, he said, you gotta restrict the kids here. He said, it's a fire hazard. And so we issued tickets. And so then some of the kids started issuing counterfeit tickets. And that, it just kept getting bigger
So
and bigger.
this show gave birth to counterfeiters.
I wish you hadn't said that. No, they were all good kids.
They were, and I'm surprised that could you move around in the studio?
Barely.
Weren't the kids asking you for your autograph?
You know, that's interesting. I don't think anybody ever asked me for my autograph because this was their gathering. And that's when I realized that I was not the star of the show. The kids were the stars of the show.
But how did you get to be a star? You're from Newport. You're right out of the Army. You run in this DJ show.
Make that Marine Corps, please.
Excuse me.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. The
There was a
Marine
difference.
Corps.
There's a difference.
Yes, sir.
Semper Fi.
But you've got this little show in Newport, and all of a sudden, you've got this TV dance show that's really starting to catch on.
Serendipitous. So Sonny Burgess and the Pacers, he was my childhood friend. We graduated together. He had a rock and roll band. And he said, Steve, we're going down to Little Rock. Channel 11 has invited us down to be on the noon show. Would you like to ride down with us? I said, well, there's nothing to do in Newport, so why not? So while they were rocking and rolling, rehearsing, I began to stroll around the TV studio. I'd never been in a TV studio before. And there was a door that was ajar, and on it said manager, and I pushed it open, and there was Jack Bomar, who went on to become a great part of my life, become a great mentor. And I said, you don't need any announcers, do you? And he says, well, you know, as a matter of fact, we do. So I walked into this studio, and Bomar and some others said, you see that studio out there where we are now? And there's a mock kitchen set up. Go out there and sell all the appliances in it. They didn't know that every summer, high school, college, I'd worked at my father's appliance furniture store selling that. So I walked out there and I said, hey, take a look at that oven, big enough for a big old turkey, and check out that refrigerator. And so they called and offered me a job at far less than I thought they would. But you know what? It taught me another lesson. If you want something, you need to go for it, regardless of the circumstances, because it's what you want. And it's what I wanted. I wanted to vault from radio to TV. This was my chance. And it really didn't matter what the salary was.
Did you get that? The teens were the stars, which could explain why, even today, they have such fond and vivid memories of being on that show. Like Betty Fay, who once entered a contest to win a date with a teen heartthrob.
Did not tell my parents, did not tell my sister, did not tell anybody. Put it in the mail, didn't even think any more about it. One day I went to the mailbox and it said, KTHV Channel 11. I went, oh my goodness. And it said that I was a finalist. I came down and I was interviewed, and they called me that night and told me that I had won. The day that he was to come at Steve's show, Steve brought me out. He said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry, but Tommy cannot come. I said, well, oh, that's okay, that's okay. And about that time, he comes through the drapes, and here he comes, and all the kids went crazy, crazy, crazy.
You know, one of the things about THV11 is that we're still in the studio where it all started back in the 50s. There are still spaces that evoke vivid memories in Steve, like the hallway just outside this studio.
Right now, this is where the kids all came down to go in to dance. Right here.
So these steps were still here?
Right here, yeah.
Dozens of kids, young
Crowded.
footsteps,
Crowded.
energetic,
Yeah.
fired up,
Right.
their hormones raging.
There were girls at Steve's show.
Did you ever have trouble getting them to start dancing?
Oh, God, no. Are you kidding?
The more you dance, the better you get.
If you didn't dance, you didn't have any reason to be here.
I wasn't supposed to be dancing because of our religion.
But my sister and I spent hours in my bedroom teaching me how to dance.
Did you have an open door policy?
Yeah, and had a record player in there. I played records for them. It was all before the show.
We'd help him pick out what sounded good that we could dance to.
We had to really behave and be quiet and be good, and they let us do whatever we wanted.
It's so weird. They're
rock
standing
and
here
roll.
right now, I'm having this urge to dance.
Yeah.
Once it gets in your bones, it's there.
I'm going
Go.
to start on my right, and you're going to start on your left.
You start on your right, okay. And
So we're
then-
going to go 1, 2, back step, and then you come back up, okay?
Are beyond amazing, but you've just gotten bits and pieces. We've got the full stories at THV11.com. I'll tell you, there is one story that does stand out about a couple that began a relationship after meeting on this show and decided to start going steady. It's about a ring, where he got it and how he gave it.
Drugstore, jewelry store. And then, I picked Marilyn up and I put it in the ashtray of the car.
That was the bad thing.
I said, what do you think? It's not too bad, really 56 years. Maybe it wasn't such a bad deal.
I've had to work a lot on him.
Let's talk about the dancing they did on Steve's show. It was called the Bop, had its roots back in the 40s with the swing and the jitterbug. But you know what? That dance survives to this day with a meeting every Wednesday night in Little Rock of the Bop Club.
About anything. We play all kinds of music here, fast, slow, in between.
No matter the music,
Oldies, funk, rhythm and blues.
there's a matching style of the Bop.
Bop is a time that adults can be playful.
With fans so devoted, they have their own club.
$25 and you're a member.
dance is such a great form of exercise, and you meet really good people that are dancing.
And in Patty Brady's case, remember,
I grew up doing the ball. I really did.
watching from her home in Augusta, she never missed the Steve Show on THV11.
The guy that I had such a crush on, that was so cute and a great dancer, was named Charlie Crouch.
When the Beta Club from Augusta High School went to Little Rock for the annual convention, she saw her chance.
And so we all went to the Steve Show on that Saturday.
And Steve announced there'd be a dance contest. And that's when Patty saw a miracle when her heartthrob, Charlie Crouch, asked her to be his partner.
We won the dance contest, and we got to go up, and Steve told everyone we had won the dance contest and rewarded us with a 6-pack of Cokes.
You see, the bop lends itself to meeting that special someone.
She started going to the Bop Club, so I started going to the Bop Club.
And thus another example of the power of dance and romance.
We started dancing together, fell in love on this dance floor, and got married on this dance floor before one of our Wednesday dances.
You know, there's a little more to it than that. If you watch the bop closely, you understand its magic. On Steve's Show, and why its survival through 6 decades. No matter how many twists and turns on the floor, people never lose touch. Speaking of never losing touch, Sandra Hubbard is a documentarian and filmmaker who was on Steve's Show. She wanted to do all she could to harvest those memories.
It was a real happy time. It added to all of our self-esteem. I mean, I probably am a television documentary filmmaker, partially because I came to Steve's Show.
Sandra's documentary is not available online, but you can head to THV11.com to find out how to get a copy. You know, after all this time, there are still some things I've always wanted to know about this show that I watched growing up. And coming up, I got a chance to sit down with Steve Stevens and get the answers I've always wanted. Next. And now, things I've always wanted to know about Steve's Show, beginning with the fact that this show that we're talking about was so popular in Arkansas, I've always had one burning question. Why did it never catch on nationally?
Tell me.
Or even regionally?
Well, tell me about it.
Because I watched as a kid growing up in Little Rock.
Little Rock was off the beaten entertainment path. It was off the path, you know, pretty much about most things in 1957. And as a matter of fact, I called Wink Martindale over at Memphis. He had a show similar to mine. And I said, Wink, you are on the path for entertainers, Johnny Cash, etc. So when they come to your show, would you tell them about my show in Little Rock, which is just 100 miles away, and they might want to come on over. And that happened. We got, you know, a lot of entertainers that way. Johnny Cash, Fabian, Brenda Lee, on and on. We just had a great deal of them.
Was there ever a time during the show, you had so many kids, space was limited, where you lost control of the show?
Never. The only thing the kids did slightly deviant from the norm was occasionally they would smoke a cigarette outside. It was extremely, an extraordinarily well-behaved group of kids in 1957. They'd all been brought up right. It was a great time of life. It was between 2 wars. It was just a peaceful time, kind of a Norman Rockwell time, really.
The African-American presence on the show.
You know, that's incredible. I reflected back on that. We never had a phone call, never had an African-American child show up at the show. It was, you know, at that time, certain things were unsaid.
Oh yeah, if this came on in 57, we know what was going on in Little Rock.
Yeah, but the turmoil was going on.
Right.
But it was if it didn't occur. This was like an enclave of innocence. If you were from the Heights or you were from Southwest Little Rock, if you could dance, you were in.
You look back on it, after 60 years, you look back on this place, that time in your life. What was the lesson it taught you?
Well, I never thought about that. It taught me how to be more humble, because you just never know what might come your way. And sometimes you get lucky, as I did. I'll always be I'll always be grateful to Channel 11 because it opened the door for so many wonderful possibilities that occurred in my life.
Our fondest memory is Steve.
Steve was a good guy.
He was always very generous, and he treated us like we were adults. Of course, we weren't.
I wanted to be here every day. Of course, I didn't get to come every day.
Like everybody says, it's more like being with your family or just friends. He was an excellent role model and such a mentor to so many of us.
He knew everybody and treated everyone well. And the boy still does.
He treated us so beautifully. He was so good to us. He was a mentor to all of us. And I don't know, he taught us how to behave.
Sometimes I wondered how he really managed to do that because we would get excited and talk out of place and talk when they were having a commercial or something like that.
Things were different then.
Friendships. Don't, you know, can you cut this up? But I'm such a crier. But see these people sitting over here, they've been my friends since I was 12.
Golly, I wish I could tell you something other than it was just a lot of fun. We had a good time.
It was the good times that we didn't have any problems in our life. We weren't rich. None of us were wealthy, and but we thought we were.
Yeah, we're almost like family type deal almost.
I told you in 1958 that the people you met on this show would still be your friend 60 years later.
I really wouldn't have been surprised because we were a close group. We were from everywhere.
Oh, we'd pair off and dance, and we didn't necessarily dance with the same person the whole time. We'd mix it up.
As I walked in here today, just a flood of memories. This is the first time I've been in KTHV since the last time I danced here.
Happy days.
It's like I remember all these people because they really were the stars.
You know, when you think about it, you think that if THV11 was going to have a special, it would be about Christmas. But in a lot of ways, this was, because you've met people who became close, who became like family, who were involved in the community, who built something magical, qualities that we cherish with Christmas, and qualities that are contained in the phrase that we use all the time these days here, "This is home," a phrase that actually began in those days, 60 years ago, with Steve Show. Hi-ho, Steve-O.
Do you remember when we